Hey, welcome to my channel. I teach the Bible here, and I hope you'll subscribe, hit the bell, make comments, give me thumbs up, help me maybe share it with someone, help me get this out to more people. And this is a message for Wednesday, the 1st of March, 2023, and I call it Examples. It's from 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 13. I was thinking about my dad. My dad would have turned 96 on the 22nd of February. Great guy. He's been gone since 10 days before his 70th birthday. His heart and lungs were shot, but he was a good and godly man and a great example. One of the things I learned from him, he would say, if I'm not 15 minutes early, when you find me, throw dirt on me because I'm dead. You know, he was 15 minutes early wherever he went. That drove my mother nuts. She'd show up at the last minute, but he was always early everywhere he went. And that was a good example for me to learn from him. And I'm kind of like that. I'm early at everything I do. So where can we find some examples to follow to stay out of sin? You know, just a practical thing. Stay out of sin. Well, 1 Corinthians 10. 1 through 13 is a pretty good place to look, okay, for examples to follow to stay out of sin. The Apostle Paul says, "For I do not want you to be ignorant of the fact, brothers, that our forefathers were all under the cloud and that they all passed through the seas," talking about coming out of Egypt and passing through the Red Sea, the Israelites, okay? They were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. That means that they followed God's presence was in a cloud and directed them, and he treats that as though they were baptized in the cloud and in the sea. It's a way of saying that they were engaged and engulfed in that, and God delivered them through the sea. So he's talking about the Israelites leaving Egypt and going through the Red Sea, and God pulling off all these miracles. And verse 3, they ate the same spiritual food. In other words, God provided manna and all that kind of thing. And they drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank this from the spiritual rock. Remember, he hit the rock and water gushed out. And we're talking about 2 million people out in the middle of nowhere, okay? Water gushed out and took care of all of them. And they drank from the spiritual rock that accompanied them. And listen to this, that rock was Christ. He's saying, this is in, I think, 1542 BC, okay, is about the time they left, or 1552, somewhere in there. And he's saying that rock was Christ. He's saying Jesus was out there with him. The presence of Christ was with him before 1,500 and some odd years before Christ ever came. Because he's like that. He's God. He can show up whenever he wants, and he was seeing them through. Nevertheless, God was not pleased with most of them, and their bodies were scattered all over the desert. All of them, except a couple of them, died out in the desert because they were disobedient. And we're going to see an example how to stay out of sin. Now, these things occurred as, verse 6, examples to keep us from setting our hearts on evil things as they did. They got off kilter all the time out there in the desert. He says this, "Do not be idolaters as some of them were. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink, and got up to indulge in pagan revelry." While Moses was on the mountain getting the 10 Commandments, the people had Aaron make a golden calf for them. And they partied and got drunk and did all kinds of evil stuff and worshiped the false god. It was the false god of one of the Egyptian gods that they worshipped. And he's don't be an idolater. There's all kinds of idolatry today. There's all kinds of false gods all over the place. There's only one real God, and we need to worship him. Okay, he said, so don't use them as an example. They got in all kinds of trouble over worshiping a false god. Don't do that. We should not commit sexual immorality as some of them did, and in one day 23,000 of them died. Saying, stay away of sexual immorality. It'll ruin you quick. Trust me. That's a bad thing to do. We should, verse 9, we should not test the Lord as some of them did and were killed by snakes. Don't test the Lord. You know, trust the Lord. Never test him, because he'll pass, okay? And do not grumble as some of them did and were killed by the destroying angel. They complained against Moses and Aaron, but God said that they were really complaining against him, not Moses and Aaron, because they grumbled. People grumble, complain, and carp, that kind of thing. Don't do that. Don't complain against God. Look to him for solutions and for strength to get through difficult times. These things happened to them as examples and were written down as warnings for us, on whom the fulfillment of the age has come. In other words, see what happened to them. Learn from what happened to them. So if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. Sometimes we think, I got it all together. No. But look at the examples and don't stumble off into sin. And then he gives verse 13. This is a powerful verse. No temptation has seized you except what is common to man. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can stand up under it. Every temptation that you and I encounter, and there's always temptations, okay? They are always common to man. In other words, somebody else in the history of the world has always dealt with what you're dealing with. Probably other people you run into are dealing with what you're dealing with. You're not alone. Other people have had to deal with the sin that you're tempted with. And he says, God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. He's not going to give you more than you can handle, and he'll give you the strength to get through it, okay? But when you're tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can stand up under it. He'll give you a way out. And if we follow the examples, we can get out of things. We can remember that those guys got killed because they gave in to temptation. We need to use that as an example and not get tangled up in that and stumble off into temptation and drop into sin and get destroyed. I spent a few years as a youth pastor in the 70s, and I used to talk to my young guys about how to escape temptation. And one of their big temptations would always be lust, and this in the mid-70s. This is right when halter tops came in with women, and that just drove those guys wacko. They'd see a girl with a halter top in the store, and they'd cruise around a couple times, take another look at her. Well, that's not a good thing. It's not healthy. And so what I would tell them is, I say, look, when you see a girl in a halter top and it's too much for you to take, leave. Just get out of there. That's what you do. Leave. There's always a way out. So you've got to look for the way out. God will always make a way for you to get out. Sometimes you just have to go out the door, get away, okay? He will still provide a way to escape, no matter what the sin you're tempted with is. So that's an example of how to stay out of sin. Always look for God's escape route. He'll always provide it. I hope you'll do that and hang in there and not get drug off into sin. I will talk to you again soon.